The email arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October 2022. Jessica Hartley was scrolling through her inbox before bed, deleting spam and organizing work messages, when she saw the sender's name and her entire world stopped. The name in the from field made her blood run cold. Sawyer, Daniel, Ironwood State Prison. Daniel Sawyer. A name she hadn't heard spoken aloud in 17 years. A name that still made her hands shake when she thought about it. A name that belonged to the man who'd murdered her best friend, Claire Mitchell, in the summer of 2005. Jessica's finger hovered over the delete button, but something stopped her. Curiosity. Maybe both. She clicked open the email. The message was short, typed in the sterile format of the prison email system that stripped away all formatting and personality, leaving only raw words on a white screen. Jessica, I know you never expected to hear from me. I know what you think I did. But I'm writing because you need to know the truth before it's too late. Claire didn't die the way they said. I didn't kill her. And the person who did is still out there. They're watching you. They've always been watching you. If you don't believe me, check your mailbox tomorrow morning. You'll find proof. I'm risking everything to tell you this. Please, for Claire's sake, don't ignore this message. Daniel. Jessica read it 3 times, her heart pounding harder with each pass. This had to be a sick joke. Some twisted game Daniel was playing from his cell at Ironwood State Prison, where he was serving life without parole for Claire's murder. The trial had been brief and brutal. The evidence overwhelming. Claire's blood on his clothes. His fingerprints on the murder weapon, a hunting knife found in his apartment. His own confession, though he later recanted, claiming it had been coerced. But the jury hadn't believed him. Jessica hadn't believed him. Nobody had. Yet here he was, 17 years later, claiming innocence from behind bars and telling her to check her mailbox. Jessica didn't sleep that night. She sat in her living room in her small apartment in Portland, Oregon, watching the hours crawl past on her phone screen. At 6 a.m., before the sun had fully risen, she walked down to the cluster of mailboxes in her apartment building's lobby. Her hands trembled as she unlocked her box. Inside was a single manila envelope with no return address. The postmark was from 3 days ago, from a town in California she'd never heard of. She tore it open. Inside were photographs. Old photographs from the summer of 2005. Photos of Claire that Jessica had never seen before. Claire at parties Jessica didn't remember. Claire with people Jessica didn't recognize. And in several of the photos, partially obscured in the background, was a figure that made Jessica's stomach turn. A man in his 30s with distinctive features, a scar running down his left cheek, dark hair, intense eyes. He appeared in multiple photos taken on different days, always in the background, always watching Claire. Jessica pulled out her phone and began comparing the photos to her memories of that terrible summer. Claire had been 22 when she died, just graduated from Portland State University with a degree in journalism. She'd been investigating a story about corruption in local real estate development, something about illegal land deals and environmental violations. She'd told Jessica she was close to breaking something big, something that would make her career. Then, 3 days later, she was found dead in her apartment, stabbed 17 times. Daniel Sawyer had been Claire's boyfriend. They'd been together for 8 months. The police built their case around a lover's quarrel gone violent. Daniel's defense that he'd been framed had sounded desperate and hollow. But these photos suggested something else. Someone else. Jessica returned to her apartment and immediately searched for information about the man in the photographs. It took 2 hours of reverse image searching and social media deep diving, but she found him. His name was Victor Castellanos. He'd been a real estate developer in Portland in the early 2000s. And according to public records, he'd been one of the people Claire had been investigating for her story. But here's what made Jessica's blood freeze. Victor Castellanos had died in a car accident in 2007, 2 years after Claire's murder. Single-car collision on a mountain road. No witnesses. Case closed. Except the man in the photos was very clearly Victor Castellanos. And if he'd been following Claire in the weeks before her death, then maybe Daniel Sawyer had been telling the truth all along. Jessica opened her laptop and began drafting a reply to Daniel's email. But before she could finish typing, her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Jessica Hartley? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Who is this? My name is Detective Robert Chen with the Portland Police Bureau. I'm calling about an active investigation. We need you to come to the station as soon as possible. It's regarding Claire Mitchell's case. Jessica's mouth went dry. But that case was closed 17 years ago. Not anymore. We received new evidence this morning. Evidence that suggests Daniel Sawyer may have been telling the truth. And Ms. Hartley, I need to ask you something important. Have you been in contact with anyone unusual recently? Have you received any strange messages or packages? Jessica looked at the photographs spread across her coffee table. I got an email from Daniel Sawyer last night. And photos in my mailbox this morning. There was a pause on the other end. Then Detective Chen's voice came back, lower and more urgent. Don't touch anything else in that envelope. Don't communicate with anyone about this. Get to the station immediately. And Ms. Hartley, be very careful. If what we suspect is true, you may be in serious danger. Danger from who? From whoever actually killed Claire Mitchell. Because we have reason to believe they've been watching you for 17 years, waiting to see if you'd ever figure out the truth. Jessica hung up and grabbed her keys, her mind racing. She was halfway to her car when she noticed something that stopped her cold. Parked across the street, a black sedan with tinted windows. It had been there when she'd checked the mailbox that morning. It had been there last night when she came home from work. She'd seen it before, dozens of times over the past few weeks, but never thought twice about it. Now she looked closer. Through the windshield, barely visible, was a figure. A man. And even from this distance, even through the tinted glass, Jessica could see the distinctive scar running down his left cheek. Victor Castellanos. The man who was supposed to be dead. But when she blinked and looked again, the car was gone, pulling away from the curb and disappearing around the corner. Jessica stood frozen in the parking lot, her phone clutched in her hand, Daniel Sawyer's email burning in her memory. The person who did is still out there. They're watching you. They've always been watching you. Detective Robert Chen was waiting in interview room 3 when Jessica arrived at the Portland Police Bureau 40 minutes later. He was a man in his late 40s with graying hair and sharp, analytical eyes that had seen too many crime scenes. Beside him sat a woman Jessica didn't recognize. Late 30s, red hair pulled back in a severe ponytail, FBI credentials clipped to her belt. Ms. Hartley, thank you for coming so quickly. This is Special Agent Melissa Torres with the FBI's Cold Case Unit. Chen gestured to the chair across from them. Please, sit down. We have a lot to discuss. Jessica sat, placing the manila envelope on the table between them. You said you received new evidence. What evidence? And why is the FBI involved in a 17-year-old murder case? Agent Torres leaned forward, her expression grave. 3 weeks ago, a woman named Patricia Whitmore was found dead in her home in Sacramento, California. Single stab wound to the chest. The crime scene was staged to look like a robbery, but our forensic team found something unusual. A pattern of secondary wounds that matched another case. Claire Mitchell's case. Jessica felt the room tilt slightly. You're saying the same person killed both of them? We're saying it's possible, Chen said. Patricia Whitmore was a former journalist who worked at the same newspaper as Claire Mitchell in 2005. They were colleagues. According to our investigation, Patricia had also been looking into real estate corruption in Portland, specifically focusing on illegal land deals involving environmental violations. Victor Castellanos, Jessica whispered. Both investigators' heads snapped toward her. How do you know that name? Torres asked sharply. Jessica opened the manila envelope and spread the photographs across the table. Because Daniel Sawyer told me to check my mailbox. These were inside. That's Victor Castellanos in the background of these photos, following Claire in the weeks before she died. And I saw him this morning. Outside my apartment. In a black sedan. Watching me. Chen and Torres exchanged a look that made Jessica's stomach knot with fear. Ms. Hartley, Torres said carefully, Victor Castellanos died in a car accident in 2007. We have dental records, DNA confirmation, and a closed death certificate. Then who the hell did I see this morning? Chen pulled out a laptop and turned it toward Jessica. On the screen was a driver's license photo of Victor Castellanos from 2005. The scar, the intense eyes, the distinctive features. Is this the man you saw? Jessica studied the image. Yes, that's him. I'm sure of it. Torres pulled out her phone and made a call, stepping out of the room. Chen leaned back in his chair, his expression troubled. Jessica, I need you to understand something. We reopened Claire's case because Patricia Whitmore's murder forced us to. But what you're telling us complicates everything. If someone matching Victor Castellanos' description is alive and active, then either the body we identified in 2007 wasn't his, or what? Or Victor Castellanos had a brother, twin, someone who could pass for him and has been operating under the radar for 17 years. The door opened and Torres returned, her face pale. We just ran facial recognition on the photos Jessica brought. The man in the background isn't Victor Castellanos. It's his younger brother, Marcus Castellanos. And according to records, Marcus was supposed to be in federal prison in 2005 for securities fraud. But there's a gap in the records. A 6-month period where his location was listed as administrative transfer with no further details. Let me guess, Jessica said, her voice hollow. That 6-month gap includes the summer Claire was murdered. Torres nodded. Marcus Castellanos was released on a technicality in 2006. His conviction was overturned on appeal. He moved to Arizona and has been living there under his own name ever since. Clean record. Model citizen. Runs a successful investment firm in Phoenix. Then why is he in Portland stalking me? Chen pulled up another image on his laptop. This one showed a more recent photo of Marcus Castellanos from a business conference in 2021. The scar was gone, surgically removed. His appearance had been subtly altered, but the bone structure, the eyes, the intensity remained. Because you're the last person alive who knew what Claire was investigating. Patricia Whitmore was the second to last. And now she's dead. Jessica's hands began to shake. You think he's going to kill me? We think he's been monitoring you for 17 years, waiting to see if you knew anything that could connect him to Claire's murder. The fact that he's watching you now means something changed. Something that made you a threat. Daniel's email, Jessica said. Someone inside the prison told Marcus that Daniel reached out to me. That's why he's here. He thinks I'm going to figure out the truth. Torres sat down across from Jessica. We need you to tell us everything Claire told you about her investigation. Every detail you remember, no matter how small. Because if Marcus Castellanos killed Claire and Patricia, and if he's been operating freely for 17 years, then there's likely more to this than we understand. Jessica closed her eyes and forced herself back to that summer. Claire was investigating a land deal in the Columbia River Gorge. A development company wanted to build luxury condos on protected wetlands. She said the environmental impact statements had been falsified, and the permits had been fast-tracked through City Hall. She had documents proving payoffs to officials. She told me she was going to publish the story in a week. Did she mention names? Only one. The development company was called Cascade Holdings. And the man running it was Victor Castellanos. Chen pulled up corporate records on his laptop. Cascade Holdings was dissolved in 2006, right after Victor's supposed death. All assets were transferred to a new company called Phoenix Investment Group. Registered owner, Marcus Castellanos. The pieces were falling into place with horrifying clarity. Marcus killed his own brother, Jessica said. He killed Victor and took over the business. But first he had to eliminate anyone who could expose what Victor was doing. So he killed Claire and framed Daniel Sawyer. And when Patricia Whitmore started digging into similar cases years later, Torres added, he killed her too. The question is, how many others were there? How many people died to protect this secret? Jessica's phone buzzed. A new email notification. She looked at the screen and felt ice flood her veins. Another message from Daniel Sawyer, sent 3 minutes ago. Jessica, if you're reading this, I'm already dead. They got to me in my cell. Made it look like suicide. But I need you to know. Marcus Castellanos visited me yesterday. He told me he was going to tie up all the loose ends. You're in danger. The detective helping you is in danger. Everyone who knows the truth is in danger. I recorded our conversation. The audio file is attached. It's my confession, my real confession about what happened that night. I saw Marcus kill Claire. He threatened to kill my family if I didn't take the fall. I've been protecting them for 17 years. But I can't anymore. I'm sorry for everything. Make him pay. Daniel. Jessica's hands shook as she opened the audio attachment. Daniel Sawyer's voice filled the interview room, shaky but determined, recounting the night of Claire Mitchell's murder. How he'd arrived at her apartment to find Marcus Castellanos standing over her body, the knife still in his hand. How Marcus had calmly explained that Daniel would confess to the crime, or Daniel's mother and younger sister would die. How Marcus had planted evidence, coached Daniel through a confession, and then ensured Daniel recanted just enough to seem guilty but desperate. The recording was 17 minutes long. By the end, all three people in the interview room sat in stunned silence. CHEN'S phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face drained of color. When? The pause. How long ago? Another pause. Lock down the facility. Nobody in or out until we get there. He ended the call and looked at Jessica. Daniel Sawyer was found dead in his cell 30 minutes ago. The parent's suicide by hanging. But the guards said he had a visitor yesterday. A lawyer claiming to represent him on an appeal. The lawyer's credentials checked out at the time, but we just ran them again. And the description matches Marcus Castellanos. Agent Torres was already on her feet. We need to move Jessica to a safe location immediately. If Marcus knows about the recording, he'll be coming for her. He already knows, Jessica said quietly, staring at her phone. Another email had arrived, this one from an unknown address with no subject line. She opened it. The message contained a single photograph. It showed Jessica's apartment building from across the street. The photo had been taken within the last hour, while Jessica had been at the police station. In the corner of the image, barely visible, was a timestamp and a caption. I've been waiting 17 years for you to figure it out. Now that you have, we can finally finish this. See you soon, Jessica. MC. Detective Chin grabbed his radio. All units, we have an active threat situation. Suspect is Marcus Castellanos, white male, approximately 50 years old, considered armed and extremely dangerous. Last known location is the vicinity of 2847 Northwest Alameda Street. Respond code 3. But even as he called for backup, even as Agent Torres began coordinating with the FBI's tactical response team, Jessica knew they were already too late. Marcus Castellanos hadn't been watching her apartment to plan an attack. He'd been watching to make sure she was gone. Which meant he was inside right now, searching for evidence, eliminating traces, preparing for whatever came next. Torres pulled Jessica toward the door. We need to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't find you. There is nowhere safe, Jessica said. He's had 17 years to plan this. He knows every move I'll make before I make it. And then the lights in the police station went out. Emergency generators kicked in, but for 3 crucial seconds, the building was plunged into complete darkness. In those 3 seconds, Jessica heard something that made her blood freeze. Footsteps running down the corridor outside the interview room, fast and purposeful, heading directly toward them. When the emergency lights flickered on, Detective Chen had his weapon drawn, positioned between Jessica and the door. Agent Torres had moved to the corner, her own gun raised, eyes scanning for threats. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. A shadow fell across the frosted glass panel. And then, slowly, deliberately, someone knocked 3 times. Ms. Hartley, a voice called from the other side. Familiar from the audio recording she just heard. I think it's time we had a conversation. Face to face. Don't you? Detective Chen's finger tightened on the trigger, his eyes locked on the door. Agent Torres had already moved to the wall-mounted phone, calling for backup, her voice low and urgent. Jessica stood frozen, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Marcus Castellanos knocked again, 3 measured taps that echoed in the small room like a countdown. "I'm unarmed," he called through the door. "I have my hands raised. And I'm here to turn myself in. But only to Jessica. Only if she hears what I have to say first." "Stay back from the door," Chen ordered, his weapon never wavering. Into his radio, "Suspect at interview room 3. I need tactical units here now." "They won't get here in time, Detective," Marcus said, his voice maddeningly calm. "And you know I'm not alone. My associate is currently in your evidence room retrieving the photographs Jessica brought. Another is accessing your digital files, erasing copies of Daniel's recording. You have maybe 90 seconds before this entire station realizes it's been compromised." Torres's face went white. She checked her phone, then swore under her breath. "He's right. I'm getting alerts. Unauthorized access to the evidence database. Multiple security breaches on the 3rd floor." "That's impossible," Chen said. "This is a police station." "Nothing's impossible with enough money and 17 years of planning," Marcus replied. "Now, I'm going to open this door slowly. My hands will be visible. I will walk to the chair and sit down. And then Jessica and I are going to have a conversation that's been delayed for far too long." The door handle turned. Chen and Torres both tensed, weapons trained. The door swung open. Marcus Castellanos stepped into the light, and Jessica's breath caught. He looked exactly like the photographs, but older, more refined. Expensive suit, silver at his temples, the scar erased by surgery but visible in the way he held his head. His hands were indeed raised, empty, non-threatening. But his eyes held something that made Jessica's skin crawl: absolute confidence. The look of a man who knew he controlled every variable in the equation. "Hands behind your head," Chen commanded. "On your knees." "I don't think so, Detective." Marcus moved calmly to the chair and sat down, placing his hands flat on the table. "If you arrest me now, the evidence disappears. My associates walk away. And Jessica dies within 48 hours, no matter where you hide her. But if you let me speak, if you hear what I have to say, I'll give you something you need. The truth. The whole truth. And a chance for Jessica to actually survive what's coming." "You murdered Claire Mitchell," Jessica said, finding her voice. It came out stronger than she expected. "You murdered Patricia Whitmore. You murdered Daniel Sawyer. And God knows how many others. Why the hell should we listen to anything you say?" Marcus's eyes fixed on her, and for the first time, she saw something beneath the confidence. Regret. Genuine, painful regret. "Because I didn't kill Claire Mitchell. My brother Victor did. And I've spent 17 years trying to cover up his crime while simultaneously trying to stop him from killing again." The room went silent. Even the sound of Chen's breathing seemed to pause.